I'm going to tell you a story. A story about defective merchandise, the sad sound of dashed hopes and dreams, and a company that should have made it right, but chose not to. The story of the B-1, one of the most iconic aircraft ever, one of the most requested RC models ever. Greetings, I'm John, and I'm making this video not because I want it to be a hit piece, but because this is a story that needs to be told. Because we spend a bunch of money on model aviation, and as customers, we deserve to be treated like our business matters, and that we're not just a number on a spreadsheet in some corporate office. The B-1 consistently topped the list of what jet should Freewing or FMS make next. So, interestingly enough, XFly took up the challenge. I have to commend them for that. This was an ambitious project. Truth be told, it's very impressive how they managed to engineer it. And it flies well if you bypass the stock gyro and fly with your own. Otherwise, you can end up with this sad story posted to RC groups. And if that wasn't enough, the wing connection points to the sweep mechanism were apparently prone to failure. This was such an issue in the first batch that Turbines-RC, not Banana Hobby, came out and publicly acknowledged the issue with this image explaining the situation. XFly created upgrade kits to fix the wings. Banana Hobby still, to this day, does not mention that the wings need reinforcement, and you can't even find the wing kit to upgrade the wings unless you know exactly what the components are called, because they don't even show up in the parts for the jet. You literally have to have someone link it to you, or you have to search for it. What really gets under my skin about this situation with Banana Hobby is that when Motion RC heard about the 80mm MiG-29 stabilator servos not having enough torque to keep the damn jet in the sky, they investigated, they found the issue, and they shipped replacement servos to their customers, free of charge. When Banana Hobby heard about the B-1 wing issues, my understanding is that they blamed the customers up until people started showing cracks in their wing connectors. Then they offered to sell an upgrade kit instead of shipping it to first-run buyers like they should have. To Banana Hobby's credit, and what little there is to give here, they do now include the wing reinforcement kits with new Lancers. I had no idea when I ordered it that I would get them when I bought the jet, so I bought a set with a link from RC groups because again I couldn't find them on my own, and installed both sets on both wings to really reinforce them and ensure that there would be no issues. Customer service is important. Companies live and die by their reputation, especially in model aviation with how small this community is. If every major company decided to treat their customers like this after asking for upwards of $700 for a flying beer cooler shaped like a B-1B, we would see a lot fewer people interested in this hobby. Growing RC flying takes more than changing attitudes at the flying field. It also takes changing the attitude of corporations offering products for sale. You can treat customers poorly, sure, and customers can choose not to buy from you. Which is why I'm recommending that you consider buying the B-1 from Turbines-RC. I know it's more expensive, but they understood that the wing connection issue was an actual problem. And they chose to address it immediately instead of blaming customers. Yes, it'll cost a little bit more, maybe even significantly more, to buy it from overseas, or basically just MSRP value if you're in Europe, but you're supporting a company that actually cares about your experiences as a customer, and I think that counts for a lot. To quote John Calland on RC groups, if perspective is everything, that's my perspective. Banana Hobby, you've turned around your reputation over the last little while, and we, the community, couldn't be happier to see another sustainable player releasing interesting products to the market. But if you're going to put your name to something like you did with the development of the Bone, and hype a release with drawn-out teasers, you'd better make sure that the product lives up to expectations. The standard you sell to your customers is the standard you accept. Now let's get on to actually discussing how this jet flies. The B-1 is gorgeous, it truly is. There is nothing like it out there. Don't even come at me and mention the Freewing F-14. That's a fighter, not a bomber. The B-1 is absolutely unique. There is no other airplane out there that looks like it. nothing that flies like it. It is a shining gem in a sky full of many similar airplanes. The turn radius on this jet is outstanding. At 1.77 meters, the extended wings are pretty big, and yet the nose wheel can rotate almost 90 degrees, making it possible to quite literally turn on a dime. The way it takes off is nothing less than a work of art. Drop flaps, throttle up slowly, and the jet will rotate almost as gracefully as the full-scale Lancer. Out of all the model aircraft that I have flown, it stands apart as one of the most scale jets for takeoffs. It is incredible. I could take off with this jet constantly and never get bored with it. With the wings extended, the B-1 is docile. Even with full 150% travel that I use on the ailerons and 125% up travel on the elevator. The jet is remarkably stable and very, very easy to fly if you've got jet experience under your belt. It's also incredibly docile in a stall too. It just drops the nose and floats down to earth like a 3D Woody.
Let's see what the stall characteristics are like. A little nice and high for this one. Power off stall testing. Here we go. Full elevator. Wow. That's full elevator. Look at it, just floats down.
Like stall already, right?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I was expecting way worse than that.
Do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Let's try that again. Power off stall testing coming in.
A plane like this would intuitively drop a wing and spiral into a hard crash, but the B-1 floats down like a feather.
Yeah. It doesn't drop a wing. That's crazy.
Interesting.
I was expecting the swept wing would, or like the thin wing would make that happen, but it didn't.
Maybe there's more to these airplanes than calculating their wing loading.
Stall testing. That was pretty good. I might be able to make it do inverted high alpha like that.
Because I stress test these airplanes regardless of whether I buy them like I did with the B-1 or have them sent to me like other airplanes that I've featured on the channel, I also put the jet into inverted high alpha testing.
We're doing inverted high alpha with a B-1. Look at it go. I'm not getting that closer to the ground.
No.
Because why? I could do that.
Because why?
I was risking $700 to see if it would be possible to do. Because some of you are insane like me and you enjoy seeing jets do things that they're not supposed to do. And to my absolute surprise, not only does the B-1 perform inverted high alpha, it does it with the wings extended. I actually severely dislike rolling the jet with the wings swept and gave up after trying it once, so I couldn't tell if it was possible to do inverted, but it probably is.
Wow. Can't believe I'm doing that with a B-1.
Lower, lower.
You think I should?
Oh man, no.
It's so controllable. I just got to give it some airspeed before I pull out of it. Otherwise, the resulting loss of lift when I roll is going to cause the plane to go into the ground. There's no way to get around that unless you have enough airspeed. So we're going to have to maybe try tree line. Jeez, this is a stupid idea. I'm blaming this on you if it goes wrong.
No.
Well, it can be done. I've proven it 5 to 10 times now. You can do inverted high alpha with a B-1 bomber. Is it stupid? Yes. But is it two brothers? Absolutely. Two brothers out here doing dumb shit so that you guys don't have to.
It'll even high alpha with the wings swept, one thing that it shares in common with the Freewing F-14. And one thing that it does really well. Just like any other jet, you steer with rudder, though I don't recommend trying to do circuits like this.
It does those high alpha passes pretty good. There was that alpha lock I talked about. It had enough speed. It's not even a lock, it just pitches up violently once it gets to a certain speed.
If you get too slow and give it too much elevator, it will pitch up violently, so be careful if you plan to fly like this, and be prepared to push the nose down quickly. You can do almost any basic aerobatic technique you can think of with the bone. Rolls, loops, etc. You can also fly it more like a fighter jet and do mock loop style flying if you like. It's agile and structurally sound enough to be flown without worrying about it coming apart. XFly did a great job engineering it overall, and I'd go as far as to say that I feel like it's built better than the Freewing F-14, but that could be more of a consequence of how engineering RC planes has improved in a decade since the Tomcat first came out. Speaking of structural integrity, make sure that you have your wing panels secured with both screws prior to trying a tail slide. Recovering from this maneuver will put enough load on the airframe and enough air will flow through the gap between the wing cover and the fuselage that it will rip straight off.
Canopy came off.
Yeah, it did.
No, canopy did not come off.
So what
Wing
came
panel
off?
did.
What did?
It's screwed in place too. How did it come off? It literally ripped off. Look at that. It ripped off completely. So it is still screwed in.
Oh.
Fascinating. This is the component that came off. I could have sworn that I screwed this in, but if you don't and you do what I did and you get into a tail slide that's really low to the ground and you try to pull out of it too fast, the G-force and the air flowing up and underneath this panel is enough to pop it straight out. The magnet keeps it in place most of the time. This is an easy glue fix. I'll take it home and fix that, but we're gonna keep flying it just like this. No big deal.
Landing is also really easy. Bring it in with a little thrust to take the edge off the sink rate, drop full flaps, and you'll have no trouble flying it down to a landing. Notice I said flying it down, because you will run into problems if you try to land it without thrust. It's heavy. Give it throttle. Let the throttle arrest the descent and bring it in slowly. Then flare it onto all 8 main wheels. Rinse and repeat. Here's how to do it.
Flaps coming in. Do the overhead pattern where we bank in. By the time we're done banking in, the plane should be lined up with the runway, and we'll start to add power as we level off. Lined up, just like that. A little bit of power leveling off. Okay, she's getting mad. I don't think we should go up anymore. Okay, flaps coming in, doing the overhead, circling in for the final approach. Bringing in the spoilers to bring it to a complete stop a little bit faster than it would normally. Although wheel brakes probably wouldn't hurt, we don't need that extra weight.
However, there is one major issue with the wheel dollies. They can get stuck in the vertical position from dirt, grit, or any other debris on the runway. Grass or pavement, doesn't matter. Observe.
Wing scrape, what's going on there?
Like your wheels are crooked or something. There it goes.
They're getting jammed. That's another thing we got to talk about too. With apparently the wheels, if they get enough grit in them, they get stuck. And one of them was stuck up and wouldn't collapse with the weight of the plane. There it is right there. It's getting grit inside of it. Is there any scraping you can see visible there on the metal? Right here. There you go. Any scraping you can see on that metal? Because I see it on my side. It's getting stuck. So it was like this.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. It needs to be lubed up or something.
Yeah.
For the price point this jet is, you would think there would be some better engineering. And I mean, given the fact that this thing has intricate landing gear as it is, it's still not bad. But for this price point, there's a lot of major, I was gonna say major and minor at the same time. There's a lot of minor issues that add up and a couple of major problems that I'm probably gonna address if I haven't already.
Some guys on RC groups insist that they had to take the entire dolly apart to fix this seized up wheel assembly. Being the smartass that I am, and kind of being lazy too, I just read the side of my Corrosion X spray bottle and noticed that it's not just a lubricant but also an anti-seize. So I coated a Q-tip with it and swabbed up both gear where the problem was. With a couple of rotations, both of them moved freely again and all the dirt was gone. This stuff is magic. While I love and have always loved the B-1, I'm not letting that cloud my scoring on this jet. It flies amazingly well, and it does so many things that I never thought it could do as a model airplane. It takes up a ton of trunk space in my Chevy Impala, which basically fits body bags with no problem, so be aware of that before buying it, because it's huge. I did almost all of my flying on SMC 5300, 5800, and 5900 high voltage batteries. The XFly fans work great with them, and there's almost no lack of thrust at all. The SMC packs also get a great balance point shoved as far back as they can sit inside of the airplane. But there's a lot of little issues that bothered me: stickers peeling up, wheel dollies getting jammed, and major issues like the wing cracks in the first generation, which were fixed later on, but they still affected people who bought the first run, or the major issue of the gyro not being tuned well. I'll show you how to bypass that, and show you the other mods that I did to bring this jet up to my own personal standards. I'm pegging the XFly B-1 at an 8.25 out of 10. If XFly fixes all of these issues and invests in better decals instead of those gray stickers with graphics printed on them FMS style, then I'll be very happy. If you like what you see here, consider picking up the XFly B-1 via the Turbines-RC link in the description. These are complicated machines, and the miracle of flight that draws us to the hobby is just that, a miracle. We get that there's going to be issues, mistakes will be made. Shit happens, and when it does, your company will be judged more on how you handle shit than you will on the shit problems themselves. Words to keep in mind.
Do I like it? Yes. Do I love any plane that I can do inverted high alpha with? Yes. Am I saying that because it cost me $700? Maybe a little bit. But I also wanted to get my money's worth out of it. And also, the money that we make here off of Two Brothers, it goes right back into the channel, guys. So we do get, you know, with the ad revenue, and when you guys do affiliate sales with us, we do go out and buy things like this that normally don't get sent out to people. So we can show you what these things are capable of so you can make an informed decision on your own. So there's really no conflict of interest here, and we try not to have any with anything else that gets sent to us. I always try to give you my honest, unbiased opinion on everything. I shouldn't even have to say this, but there are people out there that question my integrity, and it's getting old, guys. I think you can tell by whether or not I like something by how I'm going to fly it, and I do like this. What I don't like about this plane is that it takes up my entire damn trunk. So it means I can only bring out one plane, and she's over there stifling a laugh, but as you guys saw already, it's massive. It takes up my entire trunk. I can only bring... The other day, I could only bring out the stick, the ultra slow stick. That's all I could bring. And I wanted to bring other stuff, but I couldn't. So when you bring the B-1 out, at least with a Chevy Impala 2014, that's all you're gonna bring is a B-1, unless you can find some other place to put something. Overall, scale details in this thing are phenomenal. I don't like this retract system. There's more scrapes you can see right here, where like the sand has been gritting it away and making it catch. This is not as loose as it should be. It was much more loose when I first flew it. So there are some issues, like you will see, like with that one landing, if you get grit into that, and you're gonna get grit into it, it's gonna get stuck. The turn radius is nothing less than absurd. I've never flown a jet that has a turn radius like this at this scale. Now the 64mm Aeros MiG that you've seen by this point has a really good turn radius, but man, this thing blows it away. It's like, it's nimble. It's hard to describe how awesome that is. I mean, this is not very wide. We actually put two of me, like I just measured myself laying down here and lay down on the other side. This is like a 13-foot wide taxiway, so just over like 3 meters for you non-US freedom folk, freedom units type. And for this thing to turn around within the length of its fuselage is nothing less than absurd. I love it. But yeah, we'll let voiceover John get back to it, but thanks for watching, guys, and let's see what else we can talk about.
As always in these more complicated builds, here's the relevant parts of my setup, including full throws achieved by bypassing the stock gyro. To do this, you need to unplug all of the control surface leads from the gyro and run them direct to your receiver. Be careful with the stabilator and avoid using rudder when pulling the elevator. The rudder will slam into the stabilator with too much input. This doesn't happen on the full-scale jet because it's fly-by-wire, but on the model, you need to be worried about this. I'm flying on an AR-10360T, so I've also taken the liberty of sequencing the landing gear myself, but that's unnecessary for almost everybody, and I'm not going to go ahead and cover the setup for that. Once you unplug everything but the landing gear doors and gear from the gyro board, you can run the leads direct to your receiver and set up a 2 aileron, 1 flap wing type like I did. If you want to sequence the gear and doors so they close a little bit faster, you'll need to leave one male-to-male lead connected to the board and to the bind port on the receiver so that the gyro board will power the receiver. Otherwise, the receiver will not get power and the jet will not work. Because bypassing the stock gyro can let you get full throws instead of being locked to 100%, you can get the stabilator travel needed to fly with wing sweep without crashing the damned jet. Another mod you can do here is to cut a notch out of the left stabilator, which will give you negative 125% throw without hitting the rudder servo. It almost looks like it should have been this way from the factory. Just paint the white foam with gray model paint and it'll be almost unnoticeable when you're done. Here's my flap system values that I used. Switch D is my flap switch. I used negative 30% flaps with negative 8% elevator compensation for takeoff, and 35% flap with negative 14% for landing. Timer speed is set to 3 seconds. That's personal preference. You may wish to try faster or slower. It all depends on what you like. Moving on to the fun stuff, here's the mixing that I worked with. Starting off with 2 curved mixes for roll gain compensation and pitch and yaw compensation. The theory behind these mixes is that the more throttle is applied, the faster the jet is going and the less gyro gains it requires to be stable, which eliminates gyro-induced oscillation on any axis. When I drop flaps and use about 30% throttle, I have a point on both mixes to increase the gyro gains significantly to provide huge amounts of artificial stability when the jet is landing, which helps improve how it lands overall and makes it much more stable. This mix causes the flap system to pull the flaps up when the wing sweep is engaged. This is a simple mix of the flap system to the flap servos, negative 100%, negative 100%, and an offset of negative 100%, set to switch D2, which controls my wing sweep. This mix isn't needed if you have the presence of mind to not have your flaps engaged when you sweep the wings, but sometimes you might make a mistake. So it's good to have just in case. Here's my curved nose wheel steering mix. Copy down the points and values if you want something similar. Otherwise, experiment to find what works for you. I have my travel locked down to negative 125 and 125% so that the spring holding the gear door to the strut doesn't pop off, which it will do if the strut steers too much to the right. Here's the mixing for full span flaps. I don't recommend landing like this, but taking off is really nice with this setup. This is a mix of the flap system to the left aileron, which on Spectrum causes both ailerons to move up and down, which is called back mixing in the manual. The rates are negative 60%, 0%, and negative 100%. Switch F position 1 controls this mix. You'll need another curved mix to add aileron compensation to the full span flap mix. This is a mix of the aileron system to the right aileron channel. On Spectrum, this causes both ailerons to move differentially, producing a rolling motion. The points and rates are listed on screen. It's enabled via a combo switch of switch F working in concert with switch D, so that it can only be enabled when the flaps are dropped and full span flaps are enabled. Without this mix, you only get half the aileron travel because the endpoint for the roll begins at the bottom of the aileron movement since they're dropped as flaps. It's vital if you want to use full span flaps. With full span flaps also comes another mix of the flap system to the elevator. This is required with the wing setup because the deflected ailerons working as flaps produce a significant down pitch moment, which will crash the jet almost instantly if you don't have significant up elevator programmed in to counter it. The percentage I used is -25%, 0%, and no offset. The switch F and D combo switch controls this mix. If you want Crow to use as spoilers on landing to slow the jet down, Crow being flaps down and ailerons up, this mix is for you. The flap system is mixed to the left aileron channel, with the rates being 65%, 0%, and -100% offset. Switch F position 2 controls this mix. With a nose wheel on a separate channel, you can also trim it independently, meaning that you can adjust a trim switch and not have to fiddle with the jet using a screwdriver to get it to track straight, which is one of many great things about investing into more channels. This is a mix of the right trim button to AX4, the nose wheel channel. The rates are -50% and -50%, and it's set to be on at all times. This setup causes pushing the trim switch down to make the jet trim left, while pushing up trims it right. Those are all of the major mixes used, with the exception of the wing sweep trim, which needs to be done via sequencing. That's what the S3A channel is that you see in the channel assignment and the curved mixes controlling the elevator channel. These two curved mixes use the default 3 points in a curved mix with the Expo button enabled, so the curve is smooth instead of linear. The values that I've programmed in cause the stabilators to trim the jet for swept wing flight. But to get that, you need the sequencer info to pass along, but it's super easy, so I'll show you how to do it. On my third sequencer slot, I've set the timer for reverse to 11 seconds and forward to 13 seconds. Switch D2 controls the sequence. Make sure your sequencer graphs look like a linear line from -100 to +100 on both graphs. Your sequencer graph should be identical to the reverse and forward graphs that you see here on your screen. As the sweep is engaged, the values in these graphs will drive the elevator servos so that the stabilators will move based on the curve. What you're seeing in these graphs is the value that the S3A channel provides to mix the elevator servo to where it needs to be. If it sounds complicated, just try it out and you'll see what I mean. With all of the mixing covered, here's the gyro setup inside of the AS3X system, including the gain multiplier and the gain values themselves. Additionally, you'll want to consider mounting the receiver at the very back of the battery bay on the wood tray the battery sits on. That way you can keep it out of the way of the battery and help shift the center of gravity back ever so slightly. That basically covers it all. If you have any questions about something that I didn't cover or cover as thoroughly as you'd like, hit up our Discord server via the link in the description and feel free to ask me directly in the Jets channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.